Hello, I am back to test the premises of Alice A. Bailey, Esoteric Psychology Volume 1, the book that we are reading on this channel, and not a sprint as a marathon, because these teachings for me are meditations that I do every so often to make sure that I am doing something that brings me deeply out of the fake world and into the real world, the inner work, the growth work. And that's a long journey. And as long as this resonates, I will continue to help and share what helped me. And if for any reason I test it and I'm like, oh, this is horrible, this is evil, this is wrong, you sure won't see it anymore. Okay, so again, one of the main things that we're looking at here, crash course in studying a birth chart. Another huge disclaimer right there is this is a scientific, metaphysical approach to this. So for those who are of the religious background, I just want to clarify right now that this is not a study in divination. Here's the definition. What is divination? Divination refers to the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means. This can include practices like reading tarot cards, casting lots, interpreting dreams, with the intent of foreseeing the future or using any ritualistic method to gain hidden knowledge. This is also not seeking omens in the biblical sense. That's involving looking for signs and symbols of the natural world or in daily occurrences believed to predict, again, future events. This is to understand the self with a capital S, looking at the birth chart, which is a blueprint of your soul, your date of birth, place of birth, time of birth. Put it in there and you get this chart. It's a crazy looking chart. I'm going to show you how to read that. What that does from this teaching, esoteric psychology, the premise that we're testing is esoteric psychology the answer or the missing piece of traditional psychology? Have we been looking at just half of the equation? Could we learn more about humanity, mankind, in order to move forward than what we've been doing so far? Again, the reasons why I jump back to this not being about divination and seeking omens is this is a scientific, metaphysical approach to this. We're testing it to understand if this has factual evidence that can be tested and reproduced and shared in a way that can help uplift ourselves and others. The main reasons why, in the biblical sense for Christian faith, why divination and omen and fortune telling and all that is frowned upon, just in case anybody is curious, where I draw the line, is that in the context of the Bible, it shows that practices are discouraged because of the Bible encouraging believers to trust in God for guidance and understanding rather than turning to supernatural methods or signs. And again, this is not about predicting the future or finding something that we can be afraid of or to help us say, oh, I'm going to win the lottery on this date, or, oh, I'm going to marry this person when I'm wearing blue shoes, so that you then go out wearing blue shoes every day for the rest of your life and trying to, divine your life. That's not what this is about. Another reason why the Bible and Christianity frowns upon these things in a broad sense that people have not dug deeper into, my perspective, is that there's a means of spiritual purity involved. And this one is a good warning that I do support. It's the idea that engaging in divination and seeking omens is often seen as opening, and I'm reading over here from some notes, is seen as opening oneself up to deceptive spiritual influences that are not aligned with God's will. This is very much a real thing. So if you're sitting here and you're like half dabbling in certain things that you don't understand, obviously there's room for you to be deceived. One of the things people can open themselves up to deceptive spiritual influences is when you're imbibing in alcohol. If you drink alcohol, also known as spirits, you are inviting in an energy frequency that can be disruptive, harmful, and not aligned if you go out and act out of your divinity when you are under the influence of that spirit. So in the same way that you need to use discernment, judgment, and prudence and balance with alcohol, I think that studying yourself in a way that's going to help you and not go against these other teachings. One of the main things that clicks for me also is that a lot of the ancient cultures, one of the earliest known religions over in the East, they definitely adopt and have a system of acknowledging the planets and the stars and astrology. So we're talking, Indian culture, you have Asian cultures. There's also a reverence and respect for spirituality outside of the American culture, because these different cultures, including Africa and all this, we have this respect for the land and these unseen forces. We understand the unseen realm, and so we have reverence to and respect of it. And then you take America, where we sailed over Christopher Columbus and got to a nation. You saw people that were, praying for rain or doing some sort of ritual and worship. And you're just like, oh, look at that idiot. They don't know what they're doing. That's not the case. That's just something that we didn't understand, correct? So we colonized it. We, demonized it, said, hey, this is not okay, where in fact there was a lot of very advanced ancient cultures and civilizations that really knew a lot about how things were going. It begs the question of, are we moving forward or have we gone backwards in terms of advancing the human race? All that coming full circle to this study, and moving forward, that was not fast, but moving forward going to be rapid pace to try and go through all of these things, because I got a lot to show you. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you like it. All right, I'm going to share screens now and do some analysis. Okay, so here's the publisher's website. We're not going to be doing the reading today, but this is the section that we were looking at, where the Tibetan says that it is of extreme importance for humans to learn about the seven rays, because they contribute to so much of our understanding of the human kingdom. They will also offer and awaken us to true understanding of man. We'll learn about our strengths and weaknesses, our different energy temperaments, the tone of our personality, certain capacities and limitations, all kinds of things, right down to your career aptitude and your soul work. So how is that? How does that work? Let's take a look at this chart. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say on the religious point is, what other thing helps me convince me to see that there's something deeper is, does religion give you a bunch of people that are free of pride, free of lust, free of greed, anger, sloth, envy, gluttony? No, I've seen a person of every type of faith that falls into the trap of one of these sins over living a life of virtue. So that tells me that religion can get you a great portion of the way, but it does come down to the individual person to make sure we check ourselves and make sure that we are behaving in humility, generosity, chastity, kindness, meekness, temperance, diligence, and whatever else we consider to be our strengths and our virtues. Moving on to the traditional psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We touched on this in the last video a little bit. This is a slightly different chart, but important to start with the current lens of psychology. So Maslow teaches us, here's the guy right here. I don't know if this is how we really look. Abraham Maslow. So him telling us what we need to make up this pyramid, rising us up to self-actualization. So starting down here, once we have our physiological needs met, we then can move on to our safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, self-actualization. Self-actualization over here, it says a person's motivation to reach his or her full potential. As shown in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a person's basic needs must be met before self-actualization can be achieved. So before you can even think about living up to your full potential, according to traditional psychology, we need to make sure that we have our very basics, breathing, food, water, these kinds of things. Then you need to have security of your body, employment, resources, family, health, property. Then you can move into having healthy relationships with friends, family, and sexual partners, moving forward into having confidence and achievement, respect by others, and other things that build public esteem. So this is very much so the body, the safety, our relationships, moving more outward than how we are seen by others. And then up at the top, our self-actualization is a matter of our morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, our acceptance of facts. Interesting things up there, right? So according to traditional psychology, Maslow, this guy still hasn't been proven discredited from my knowledge. This is what makes us, the apex of a human being. According to Alice Bailey in Esoteric Psychology, this isn't the full equation, because in here, there's nothing that mentions spirituality. It talks about morality. There's nothing in here about faith and the unseen realm. It's all very physical, right? Except for at this top of the pyramid, we are getting into some things that are more mental, are cognitive things that we have to think deeply on. But according to the 7 rays, the 5th ray, the seat of the soul, where we reach actualization, according to Bailey, is the mental plane. So this correlates. But how is that? Taking a look back at a chart that we looked at last time, the dispersion of light and recombination back into white light. Go back to the other video for a deeper dive into this. But looking at this upward pyramid and downward pyramid, how I explained it in that last video, this Maslow's pyramid is actually the lower self, mastering the lower self. So these things, again, the triangle pointing down, things of the earth or things of the physical plane, mastering those things brings you to the top of basic human nature. But to move up into higher nature, divinity, when we recombine back into our one unity consciousness, our essence, our source, we go back from whence we came, meaning upwards in intelligence, inclusivity, understanding, love, compassion, grace, and the ability to truly add value, to help, to serve more than just ourselves. That's working on the upper triangle. 7 rays helps us to understand, to understand more than what Maslow is giving us here. All of this remains true and important, but we're going to live in this realm and go to the next part of the triangle, which is mastering our divine nature. The 3 parts of the 7 rays, the first 3 rays, will, feeling, thought. We look at this chart a lot. First ray, second ray, third ray. These are the rays of aspect. They also are looked at as the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Mother. So these are a triangle, if you will, the lens through which all is reflected out from the 1 into the 3, into the 7, into the many. So these first 3 rays give us all the others. There are correspondences between these other rays. For example, 2nd ray and 6th ray, these are our faith and religious folks. 3rd ray and 5th ray, these are our mental or intellectual folks, and so on. Now, looking at this chart, it gives it to us in an interesting way. It gives us the 7 energy types. A quick way to see what the 7 rays each stand for as we want to get into the test of, is this true? Do humans all fall into these 7 basic buckets? Well, it says on the right-hand side, the easiest way for me to see this, I think they're pretty much the same on both sides, but the dynamic type is the first ray, people who are all about exerting their will psychologically. The sensitive type, those who focus on feeling, is of utmost importance. Mental types, creative types, analytical types, dedicated types, practical types. Okay, so if we look at these 7 buckets, the 7 rays say that these are the 7 primary expressions of all human beings. They fall into these 7 types. Of these 7 rays, there also are further positive or negative qualities. Negative qualities are the things that represent the duality of each of these rays, as well as the physical realm, because that's how we learn, is through opposites, this and that, and then we make our decision, or this and that, and then we learn our lesson. So the negative qualities broken down here, and then the qualities to develop based on those negative qualities help us to step into the full aspect of the positive or liberated or elevated expression of these traits. So the interesting thing with all these different qualities, going back to what Bailey says, again, is that the ray predisposes a man to certain strengths and weaknesses, constitute our principle of limitation, as well as endowing us with our capacity. This is saying that we have all of these different traits, positive and negative, dictated by this. So that is broken down, seen here. I wanted to get a little bit deeper and see a little bit more. So I looked for a chart that goes into breaking down the qualities, strengths, and different needs, which again, we call the weaknesses or the negative traits. Another way to look at them is just the things that we need to develop, things that are indications of our areas to grow into the highest or exalted version of the way we express ourselves. The 7 rays awaken us to the true understanding of man. You don't just wake up and you say, I am this way, so that's just how I forever need to be. This study is telling us that the way we can look at it is that we are influenced primarily by one of these types. That's going to give us an automatic bucket of a certain number of qualities and a certain number of weaknesses or things that we can work on and build in order for us to see more of our qualities and our strengths. If we're operating in our lower or the opposite or the dual nature, then we're going to see less of our strengths. So that's that balance. That's that yin yang. So this already gives us a realm of where we start and where we need to move into. Some examples of the first ray. This is divine will, primary ray. Again, going back to that last chart where it says this is the dynamic type. Our main chart says these are folks whose negative qualities are pride, ambition, will of mind, mental rigidity, arrogance, desire to control others, obstinacy, anger, aloofness, corrupt politician. That's funny at the end. And it says we need to develop tenderness, humility, steadfastness, sympathy, kindness, tolerance, fearlessness, patience, sacrificial love. Interesting. So on this chart, to take that a little step further, looking only at this one, we're going to go rapid fire here again because there's a lot of ground to cover, but happy to do deeper looks into this if it's helpful or interesting. So if you're here and you're a first ray type, you find yourself to be pretty indecisive or inactive, like trouble just getting going, because this is a person who should be very dynamic, highly active, highly assertive, going after what you want, knowing exactly what you want. But if you are not operating in your highest expression of your nature, you will find yourself to be very indecisive, inactive, feeling like you don't have purpose, disoriented, chaotic, non-specific, wishy-washy, powerless, lacking structure and boundaries. So this is the non-helpful expression of this energy. Many people can go through life just staying with that naturally because they think they just have a bad set of cards. That's the hand they were dealt. But instead, the things that you could be expressing and your actual nature is someone that's very powerful, action-oriented, active, someone who has a lot of direction, very clear purpose and path. You exert your will. You find everything very meaningful. You like order, specificity. You are very decisive. You like structure, boundaries, showing and demonstrating the strength of your will, the divine within, because God, essence, life source is the creator. So that is the ultimate display of strength and courage and independence to create all that is and to assert your will and to express it precisely and exactly. That is definitely a divine character. This is first ray qualities and strengths. Ways that you can develop that applications would be working on planning, setting goals, defining your purpose. And if you find that you have a hard time making a decision, go into expressing yourself in very definite ways. Make decisions. Learn how to stick with things. Don't be wishy-washy. I honestly don't know necessarily why this dove into the opposite here. Right here, having a hard time making decisions or lacking personal boundaries. It would be the opposite, I would say, to make the application of this. Start making personal boundaries. Assert yourself. Make yourself feel more comfortable with making decisions. Push yourself in that way. So this is growth areas, right? The difference between here and here is growth. It is the difference between here and here is your will and expressing that will. So fascinating to see this go through all these different ray types. This particular chart was applicable to a website, Living Light Essences. So I think that in particular, there was, for me, I think the third ray didn't closely align with the general understanding of the 7 rays, as Bailey puts it, but there is close breakdown here, and there's a lot of materials that you can get, or there's also a good presentation that I've linked to in the past, and I'll link all of these tabs in the description, as always. But there's lots of research to be done here, and again, to dive into these rays and understanding, oh, if this were true, again, testing the premises, and I were to find that I am a 4th ray personality, then I would be able to have a more focused area of my intentions and my actions in life. If I wanted to improve individually as a personality, as a person, I would know that these are the things that are identifiable ways to show that I am not acting from my higher nature, my highest self, my highest potential, moving to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If I'm only focusing on, if I've got these basic things met and I want to crack through here up to this higher upwards triangle of self-actualization, what do I need once I have all of these physical things met and boxes checked? Then I can move towards identifying these things in here. Am I very reactive? Do I tend to role play and be very dramatic? Like it says down here, fourth ray types in the lower aspect, like drama, conflict. Am I false? Do I cause a lot of discord? Am I hypersensitive? Am I easily affected? Am I pessimistic, very reactive? All of these things. What I need to move into qualities or strengths to express myself and self-actualize would be embracing my feelings from an intuitive nature, learning what spiritual intuition is. Why do I have feelings? Not that I need to listen to everyone and be ruled by them, but to understand that they are guidance. They are guidance systems, and sometimes they can give me hunches or nudges towards what I should be doing. And I have that much more of an in-depth perceptiveness to them because I happen to fall on this ray where I understand intuition more strongly than some of these other more practical folks or more fiery folks. And again, looking at this as air, earth, fire, water, this also aligns with the elements which are making up a person's astrological makeup, your zodiac signs, which is why all of this eventually gets us to the birth chart. But still looking at this from moving from the traditional over to the spiritual, we're understanding that this is half of the equation because the spiritual piece that we're going to look at later is what gets us the rest of the way there in theory. So things that I need to strengthen or what I can recognize in myself and in my nature to show that I am acting of my more self-actualized or higher self qualities would be that I bring harmony to situations rather than, again, drama and conflict. I'm attuned. I'm comfortable being myself. I'm flexible. I'm okay with being neutral. Like, be okay with being neutral. You don't have to pick a side. One of the big characteristics of fourth ray types is that they are the link between all the rays, and likewise, they're the link between all things. This is the bringer of harmony through conflict, the people that can understand conflict because they can understand both sides. This application here that says creating beauty out of chaos, this is the person that can see, oh, I can see the truth to what this person's saying, but I can also see truth to what this other person is saying, and I can bring harmony between those two points of views, those two perspectives, different ideas. Same thing with like faith systems. A fourth ray type might say, well, I do understand this philosophy, but I also understand this religion, and I can see how both things are true. That kind of thinking is very resonant or representative of fourth ray type of personalities. So whereas over here, first ray is wishy-washy and having issues deciding and, figuring things out. It's interesting because that is also the nature of a fourth ray type. However, the difference is this person is in discord when they're doing those things. They're not feeling fulfilled. They're feeling sluggish. They're feeling lackluster. They're not feeling, quote, like themselves. And this person over here thrives in that energy because they're like the bridge. They're the bridge for people that see things in this very rigid way. So they can help, like it says, this role-playing tendency. You can help someone get out of themselves and work on this fantasy of imagining the other side or the other point of view. When we look at the zodiac, this is a very Libran type energy. Libra is the scales, the justice, the balance. Libra is naturally someone who sees both sides of situations. And again, astrology, we'll look at, it's not just simply your zodiac, your horoscope, where they look at your sun sign and say, oh, I'm a Taurus, so XYZ is going to happen to me today. This is not what we're talking about. This is a deep personality analysis and study of a birth chart, which has several placements, as we're going to see, and is very intricate. And there's many, many different qualities that a person has. And they're not all the same for all of us, though the same building blocks exist for all of us. So each of us have a different flavor and tinge of each of these different things, but the things are still within this set, much like this study is saying that the range of types that we can be is still within this set, even though there are so many of us. And so this is a practice of going from the many different variances and intricacies all the way backwards again to the one, the united self. But first, we break ourselves down into these different types, these different categories, these different identities in order to exist as humans. But this study is helping us to understand how to bring that back a little bit, or to rein it in to a deeper understanding of the qualities that everyone has around us, to understand why a person might be that way. Why, when I talk to this person, do they always try to get me to understand both sides? Why are they always neutral? Why can't they just pick my side? Why can't they just understand me? A child might think that of their parent. Well, maybe they're trying to demonstrate the human trait of neutrality, the beauty of harmony, of linking opposites, finding value in things that might be hard to grasp or seeming like they're in conflict with one another. These are harmonizers. They can teach us the divine trait of balance and bringing things back into perspective if they're in their positive quality strength. So applications that it's saying, according to this chart, create beauty out of chaos, bringing harmony back into your life, resolving inner conflict, seeing the beauty in things, increased understanding and compatibility. These are kind of lame. I would like redo this chart again based on, mixing again astrology traits back into the rays and tying this closer to Bailey's studies. I'm sorry to say this is lame. This is very good, and it probably applies to this system specifically, but it also is, for our purposes, a really good, a high-level overview of how we could look at this study if we were to dive deep into the 7 rays and apply it to the 7 forces in man and in all nature to test it. So again, we can do an in-depth on each of these rays, but for now, I'll leave it there. We saw the contrast between 4th ray and 1st ray. It doesn't mean that just because a person has these indications that across the board, everyone needs to work on that and fix it, and it's a flaw. This is a deeper and more in-depth understanding of mankind already, because it tells us that what might be true for one person and their type, what might translate to a deep amount of discomfort and unhappiness and displeasure in their life, might be perfectly content for another person. It might frustrate this person over here if you're coming together, just like Bailey also said that the rays teach us why certain people have an easy time with certain ways of thinking and others find it difficult. That's because these are your natural tendencies. You have certain qualities and strengths innately, and it's okay. Certain people are meant to be that way because they're here to project and beam out that vibration to teach the rest of us that trait so that we can learn to incorporate it in our measure. But also our main work is going to be to express our strengths, qualities, and beam out our certain traits of divinity that we're supposed to express, and that everyone else can look and be like, oh, wow. Thank you, 1st ray people, for being 1st ray. I'm 4th ray, but I'm not going to only do this. This isn't the only way that I can be. Thank you for showing me that there are other ways to be, and let me work on now. Once I've actualized and mastered myself, let me become the monad, the one, the unity of all traits, of all things. Let me learn to embody all of these qualities and strengths and attributes. Let me learn how each of these different people add to the whole of all nature. And let me move myself towards being a more complete person, not just thinking the way that I think, not being in my lower nature, my dual nature, rising up from that. And then the next work, rising into broadening myself so I can appreciate different traits from other rays, other expressions of divinity as well. It's great. It's a lot of work, but that's life. It's just it mentions the Alice Bailey system there at the bottom. I'm going to link to this at the end. How are we doing on time? I have no idea. I think this is going to be long. I think it's already long. I might break this up into separate videos as well, too. In fact, I think I am going to pause this right here because my voice is getting my throat's getting a little scratchy, and I want to make sure that I am fully sharp and don't rush through the next piece of this where we go in depth into some birth charts and analysis of the wheel and all that. I hope that it doesn't frustrate you too much and we kind of get to a certain place, but I hope that this journey and this exploration of where we are in these concepts is still interesting enough to kind of be like, all right, that was helpful. That was enough that we can go deeper at the next time. Because again, like I said, this is like a life's work. It's not a race to the finish. Let me master this so I can say I did it, or that I read the book and then like got the t-shirt and move on. This is like, this is important. This is deep. Bailey says this is of profound importance to us. We're getting the other piece of the equation. I love movie clips, so I'm going to go to the Interstellar, where she realizes that the professor is having her work on this equation to crack this code to help bring back these astronauts, her dad from space, and he didn't tell her that the equation that she was working with was incomplete. Like, it's unsolvable because you only have half of the equation. That's what our goal is here, to get the full equation, all the elements that we need in order to do the work or the thing called life. Until then, we're going to be running around in circles. We're going to be frustrated. We're going to be living in chaos, which if you look around, we kind of are. So it begs, the question of, what are we getting wrong? For me, I think that this could be a big answer to that. And so I'm super excited about the study, and I will continue to share with you what I've learned and how I'm thinking and how I'm breaking this down. And I would love to hear from you what you find and what applications you've made as well. So we can kind of, like I said, synergy, go further together. So that's it for this one. I'm going to link to that Interstellar clip and then to my Matrix clip, because we got to go out on that. Thanks so much for watching, and take care.
How far have you got?
Almost there.
You're asking me to hang everything on an almost.
I'm asking you to trust me. Find us a new home, and by the time you return, I will have solved the problem of gravity. I give you my word. So many reasons that communications might not be getting through.
I know, Professor.
I'm not sure what I'm more afraid of. Them never coming back, or coming back to find we've failed.
Then let's succeed.
So, back to the fourth iteration. Let's run it through some new fields.
With respect, Professor, we've tried that hundreds of times.
It only has to work once. Murph.
Time. You're afraid of time. For years we've been trying to solve the equation without changing the underlying assumption about time.
And?
And that means each iteration is an attempt to prove its own proof. It's recursive, it's nonsensical.
Are you calling my life's work nonsense, Murph?
No, I'm saying that you've been trying to finish it with one arm. No, with both arms tied behind your back. And I don't understand why.
I'm an old man, Murph. Can we take this point up at another time? I want to talk to my daughter.